How did the least populous county trend on a presidential level between 2020 and 24? That's what we're going to find out today. We've done the most populous county trends and we've done the least populous county shifts. That was right after the election, so take a look at that video if you'd like. So today we're going to compare those individual least populous county swings to the national swing, and that's going to get us the trends. It's not at all the most important data out there, but let's take a look at it anyway. And at the end, of course, we've got a couple of maps. So I'll put up the background information, but I'm not going to go over it because we're all pretty much familiar with these two elections. I cover it in almost every video. The main thing we're going to be focused on is that national popular vote, and that did swing toward Trump and the Republicans. So pause it if you'd like, but we're going to move on to the spreadsheet. On the left, we've got the least populous county in each state. Then it's the 2020 vote for Biden, then Trump, then the 24 vote for Harris, then Trump. Then it's the margin in 2020 in those counties shaded accordingly. Then it's the same for 24. Then we've got the swings. These are the difference between the two previous counties. And finally, it's the trends. This will compare the swings in each county to the national swing. That's going to get us the trend. And we've got shading in these two columns at the right. The darkest colors are 10 or more points. The lightest are under 5%. So before we can look at each county, we've got to get that national baseline. So in 2020, with the popular vote, Biden got 51.3, Trump got 46.8. 4 years later, Harris went down to 48.3, Trump went up to 49.8. The margin for Biden in 20 was 4.5. The margin for Trump in 24 was 1.5. Very simple math there. That's 4.5 points away from Biden, another 1.5 toward Trump, and that comes out to a national popular vote swing of an even 6%. Anything more than that in each county is going to be a red trend. Anything less than that is going to be a blue trend. So I think we're ready to get started, and keep in mind, a lot of these counties have very, very low populations, but some of them, they're in states that don't have a lot of counties and their populations are going to be higher. So let's go through the first county. It's Greene County, Alabama. This one was easily won by Biden in 20. He got 81.3. Trump was at 18.3. In 24, Harris still easily won it, but she went down to 77.6. Trump went up to 21.9. The margin for Biden in 20 was 63. The margin for Harris in 24 was 55.7. This county swung toward Trump and the Republicans by 7.3%. That 7.3 is higher than the national movement of 6% that already went toward Trump. The difference between those two is the trend, and that comes out to 1.3% in the direction of the GOP. In the borough of Yakutat, Alaska, that actually got a lot bluer. It swung in the opposite direction of the country by 11%. So that means this borough actually trended the bluest out of every single state. That comes out to a pretty big 17%, all while the country went 6% in the other direction. So now you have an idea of how this works. Let's quickly go through the rest of these counties. Some of the pronunciation gets a little tricky. Greenlee County, Arizona trended redder by 1%. Calhoun, Arkansas, redder by 2.9. Alpine, California, bluer at 6.6. San Juan, Colorado, also in that direction by a pretty big 12.9. In Windham County, Connecticut, that county had the smallest trend out of all the states. It moved almost perfectly in line with the country, but it comes out to a tiny 0.1% trend toward the Dems. And in that same direction in Kent County, Delaware, that comes in at 3.9. Then in Liberty County, Florida, they had a red trend of 0.4. In the uniquely pronounced Tolliver County, Georgia, they were just a little bit more than that at 0.7%. Then in Kalawao, Hawaii, very, very few people here. This actually had the biggest trend period out of all the states. That comes in redder at a massive 18.7. Then we've got some blue trends in Clark County, Idaho at 8.6. Hardin, Illinois, 1.9. The confusing Ohio, Indiana at 2.5. Adams, Iowa, 5.4. And Greeley, Kansas, 6.1. Then a tiny red trend in Robertson, Kentucky at 0.2. In Tensas Parish, Louisiana, they came in at 3.4 in the same direction. In Piscataquis, Maine, that was 3.3% toward the Dems. Then in the other Kent County in Maryland, that was also toward the left at 1.9. Nantucket, Massachusetts came in toward the right at 2.8. Keweenaw, Michigan is at 5.5 toward the Dems, as is Traverse, Minnesota at 1.8. Issaquah, Mississippi went toward the Republicans at 2.4. Then more blue trends in Worth County, Missouri at 1.2. Petroleum, Montana, 4.1. Arthur, Nebraska, 2.5. And Esmeralda, Nevada, 7.1. Coos, New Hampshire was redder at 1.8. Salem, New Jersey at 0.3. And Harding, New New Mexico at 5.5. Then we've got a big batch of blue trends in Hamilton, New York, 6.8. Tyrell, North Carolina, 0.3. Slope, North Dakota, and even 3. Vinton, Ohio, 2.4. Cimarron, Oklahoma, 6.5. Wheeler, Oregon, 10.2. Cameron, Pennsylvania, 2.5. And Bristol, Rhode Island, 2.9. Then a couple of red trends in Allendale, South Carolina at 1.8. And similar in Jones, South Dakota at 1.7. Then another bunch of blue trends in Pickett, Tennessee, 3.2. Loving, Texas, the least populous county in the U.S. at 12.4. Daggett, Utah, 5.7. Essex, Vermont, 1.2. Highland, Virginia, 5.8. Garfield, Washington, 5.6. Wirt, West Virginia, 2.6. And Menominee, Wisconsin, 3.2. The last county is Niobrara, Wyoming, and they trended redder at a mild 1.1. So those are all the least populous counties. Now, to help visualize this data, let's take it all and put it on a map. Here we go. We've got similar shading, 4 levels of it. The darkest colors, 10 or more points. This time, the lightest colors are under 1% trends. And the shading here is how the least populous county trended in each state. So are there any takeaways here? Well, at the top, we could see states that trended toward the Dems, total 34, and toward the Republicans, it's 16. So it's a clear Dem advantage. Now, the reason that's the case is the vast majority of these counties did swing toward the Republicans, but they were just unable to do so by a 6% margin like the entire country did. So even if they swung 2 or 3 points toward Trump, that's just not enough, and it's going to come out to a blue trend. That's what we see in a lot of spots around the Midwest. But there are some of these least populous counties that either barely moved toward Trump or they actually moved a little bit toward Harris. If that's the case, then you're going to see those medium shades of blue. That's in places like New York, Iowa, Idaho, and California. There's even 4 double-digit blue trends on here. That's Oregon, Colorado, Texas, and Alaska. But again, keep in mind, many of these counties have so few people in them that just changing a few votes in one direction or the other could have a big swing. That's certainly the case in Hawaii. That's obviously a blue state, but that had the biggest trend out of all the states, and it was actually toward Trump. It's interesting to see Alaska and Hawaii having the biggest trends going in the opposite directions of their traditional partisan lanes. The other brighter spots here for the Republicans are mostly going to be concentrated in the South. There's a little bit going on in the Southwest as well. You've got Wyoming and South Dakota, also a little bit in New Jersey, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Those rural southern counties just swung enough toward Trump that they were actually able to have a red trend. So there's one more map we can take a look at if you want to see the current electoral votes. So that leads to this. This time, the states trending toward the Dems total 388 electoral votes. For the Republicans, it's 147. Now, I'd be the first one to say this is not the most useful data out there. In some states, it's more useful than others, but overall, it's just for fun to see how things moved. If you looked at the second least populous counties in a lot of these states, you might get noticeably different results. It all depends on the demographics of some of these counties. And in other places, they were already close to maxed out going for Trump. It was going to be tough for them to squeeze out another full 6% to avoid a blue trend. But overall, this map looks a lot better for the Dems than the actual 2024 election map. But as always, you're going to get some crazy looking results when you look at different things. So that's it for the trends in the least populous counties in each state. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of this data? It's a little silly, but did you notice any patterns? And what about the demographics in some of these counties? And which state and which county surprised you the most? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.